Hello and welcome everyone to another Ripper episode of Freedom Uncensored. It's a really important content area for me today because it's something that I feel really, really passionate about. And that is really helping salon and clinic owners make freaking good money. I think we all get into business because we have these dreams and aspirations of being able to foot the bill on lifestyles that just everyday 9 to 5 jobs wouldn't do. The challenge that we face, though, sometimes as business owners, when we're just starting out, or even if you're well into the journey, you can fall into a situation where your business is not producing wealth. Your business may not even be producing profit. For some people that it's just dreadful, but some salon and clinic owners are not even taking a wage. So I just think that we work too hard. You take too many risks. You put too much work and effort into your business to not have a business that is actually generating wealth. Right. And I'm not talking about just a wage, like a 500 a week or a 1,000 a week. Like I'm talking about something that can change your life, money that is able to, take all of your family on overseas holidays and pay for private schools and, hopefully not. But, if something happened and someone became sick, you wouldn't have to think twice. You'd be able to afford the treatment and, pay off your mortgage or whatever it is that is a real freedom element for you, because my opinion is money has a direct correlation to how much freedom you actually have in your life. My freaking program's called Freedom Mastery, right? Because I strongly believe that your business should be delivering you the freedom and the wealth that you deserve for taking the risks, for, putting in all of this effort and energy. You do too much to just accept, a mediocre payment for that. So today's session really is about unpacking what needs to happen. There's 3 areas that I help salon and clinic owners really refine and tweak to make sure that they've got good cash flow coming into their businesses, that we don't just have a situation where it's money in, money out of the bank account and, at the end of every month we have a look and there's nothing left over. That really is not, if you're having that situation in your business right now, what I would say to you is that you've got a cash flow problem. But what I would also say to you is that there are very specific steps that you can take to fix it. And I'm going to share with you the 3 different areas that we focus on in the Freedom Mastery program to make sure that you can actually get some traction on cash flow and end up with way more money in the bank at the end of the month than you do at the start, and having a bank account that actually grows, right? Imagine that. All right, let's get into it, hey? Right, so a little story to this, like when I opened my skin clinic, it was a startup skin clinic. I had some limiting beliefs around it making money immediately, so unfortunately, some of those limiting beliefs really, I suppose that it injected a patience into me. I would make excuses like, well, I'm just starting out and no startups make money in their first 12 months. And then I kept referring to it as a startup in year 2. And then we're getting into year 3 and we're still not seeing the money, so often what can happen is we excuse away not having bank accounts that are building wealth and getting cash flow out of our business with lots of different excuses and reasons why. And the reality is your business can start making money from day one. From day one. I don't care where you are in your business journey. I don't really care for what is going on in your business. The reality is that you can make money now. Okay. I think what happens though is to cope with the reality that the business is not generating the revenue, the income, the profit, the cash that it should be, we excuse that away with reasons for why it's not. I often talk every day, I talk to salon and clinic owners that come up with lots of different reasons as to why their business isn't making the money that it should be, isn't why they're not taking a wage, why they've got this kind of unhelpful and unhealthy pattern of money in, money out, and it's been that way for a long time. You know, they'll say things like, oh, well, you know, I don't have the right amount of team members to make money, or, you know, we've lost some clients and we're not servicing as many clients as we used to, or, you know, I've got, you know, all of these expenses that have just popped up and come out of nowhere. They'll like be forever excuse away reasons for why the business is not making money. And I think the first step to all of this is really coming to the conclusion that your business making money is kind of a realistic expectation, first and foremost. And when I say making money, I don't just mean money in, money out. I mean making profit. Your business should be paying you an income, a good income, and you should have more on top of that to spend and invest and do whatever it is that you want to. You know, so the reality is, if you don't have that, the first step is stop making the excuses that this is just the way things are. You know, you could be a startup making excuses around, well, I'm just getting started. You could be 10 years into business saying, well, I just can't find the team members to produce the revenue. Like, there's lots of excuses that people get caught up in to excuse away the fact that the business is not generating the profit and the cash flow that it should be. So first step is say goodbye to the excuses. Okay, because I'm telling you, the reality is your business can be making money now. The reason why I can say that is because with the areas that I'm going to show you that need to be tweaked, when I've tweaked those areas and my program has helped clinic owners do that, we've found businesses make money straight away. And some of these clinics and salons haven't been making money for years and years and years. And then when we look at these three areas and we start to make adjustments and we start to do things differently, voila, the money shows up in the bank account. And it can often be quite bewildering for salon and clinic owners. They're like, oh, wow. Like, could I have been doing this a few years ago? And the reality is, yes, it didn't have to be this way for such a long period of time. So I want to first talk to you about the common challenges that I see when I'm having these conversations with business owners. And they're probably challenges that I've also had in business when I've, you know, been in business and I'm not making the profit and the cash flow that I would like to. You know, and predominantly the salon and clinic owners that I work with, there are some real common features of these business owners and my previous experiences that have led to you ending up in a business that is not making money. First of all, a common theme is that when I start looking at the numbers of the business, it's evident to me that the business owner either doesn't have a realistic understanding of their expenses, or they don't have an up-to-date one. So sometimes that can lead to a real underestimation around what it costs you to run your business, what it costs you to run your services. And then you make assumptions based on, you know, what you think it costs or what you think, you know, should be going out the bank account. And then unfortunately you get a big rude shock at the end of the month and it just doesn't ever seem to measure up. You know, and I think the challenge is, unless you have a really kind of good, up-to-date, realistic grasp of your expenses and what it takes to, you know, how much it costs to provide your services, then you don't have a starting point. You know, there's also the part of a lot of salon and clinic owners are scared to actually look at their numbers. They know they're not making money. The bank account tells them that, but that's where it stops. They're kind of like, oh, you know, where do I go from here? What numbers do I look at? How do I understand this? So, you know, I'd rather just stick my head in the sand and just hope that the team member drops out the sky, or all of a sudden the clients start coming in through the front door and then we magically start making more money. Nothing happens magically. It has to happen with intention. First and foremost, you need to have a really good understanding of operating expenses and profitability in your business. You can't take the steps towards rectifying any of that if you don't have a good baseline on your financials. It just can't happen, right? The second area that I find leads to business owners ending up in this situation where they've got a money in, money out relationship with cash flow is that commonly what's happening in the business is a baseline service is being provided. So, you know, whether you're hair, skin, beauty, it doesn't matter. You've got clients coming in for a service, and basically that's all that's being done. Now, there's a couple of kind of scary features to that. One, I'm going to address when I tell you guys what to look at and how to fix some of this. One is if they're just providing a service. So if, let's just say a client is booked in for a microdermabrasion. Let's say that client comes in, has a microdermabrasion and gives you the money for it and walks straight out. That's called just providing a baseline service. What's missing is the retailing, the upgrading opportunities. You might want to add extras into the service, and then the rebooking is missing. You know, sometimes there can be a perspective that they're all extras. They're all additional things that you can add on to the service if you want to. What I'm saying is that you need to do that to create cash flow positive business in the hair, beauty and skin industry. It's not a if you like or an option. It's, you know, just looking at it from a cash flow perspective, you need to do it to be profitable. The other side of this argument is you need to do it to get freaking client results. That's neglecting the whole technical element of all of this. You know, so just providing a baseline service, just servicing the client with what they've booked for, not only is it creating massive cash flow problems, and it will create even more problems if that service is not profitable to begin with, right? And then when we're not adding on the other features of the service, the upgrade, the retailing and the rebooking, then we're really in trouble, right? So you can't just provide a baseline service for cash flow reasons, but you also can't provide a baseline service for client satisfaction and results. It's just, to me, it's just providing the bare minimum. You know, and bare minimum doesn't produce cash flow positive business. So I want to hone down on one aspect of that too, because it obviously leads into the strategy that I'm going to talk to you guys about. But you know, if you're just providing a baseline service, and there's a really important part of, you know, providing a comprehensive service, which includes rebooking clients for future appointments. Now, to me, that's part of the comprehensive service, not you know, making sure that someone's leaving with the home care that they need, they've been offered the upgrades that they need to get the result that they're looking for, and they've got their appointments mapped in advance and they're all booked in. That's what I call, I'll refer to it as the comprehensive service. To me, that should be the baseline, not the other, where we just get stuck in the motion of someone's booked in for this, that's all we do, and then we move on to the next client, right? When we hone down on rebooking has a serious impact on whether the business can make money or not, because inconsistent rebooking then creates gaps in appointment books, and gaps in appointment books are very, very, very expensive. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you why and how and what to do about it in a moment. So when you're not consistently rebooking clients into future appointments, a lot of challenges happen, right? You might have the situation where you've got full-time team members, and then because of inconsistency of rebooking, they don't have full books, and you're paying for people to stand around, right? You're paying an hourly rate for somebody that is not producing revenue against that hourly rate. This is where the cash flow starts to deplete, right? You're not able to grow the business because you're not growing a baseline of attendance. You know, if you have this feast or famine experience going on with the appointment books, you can't expect the business to grow, because you might start to do some marketing to fill the appointment gaps, but you never grow, because you end up in the cycle of I bring the clients in and then we lose them. So we never actually get ahead of the game in terms of the marketing investment. We bring clients in, they fall out the bottom, and we stay the same. So the only difference is we're now starting to use cash flow to spend money on marketing and acquire clients that come in and don't stay. So it's a complete waste of money, because you're investing, you're not getting the return. And then even worse than that, the appointment books either stay the same or continue to have lots of vacancy, which continue to cost you more money, which continues to have team members standing around not producing revenue against the hours that they're being paid for. So you can see when you look at all of these elements, all of these features of, what goes on in businesses, salons and clinics that aren't making money, these are the common trends that I see when salon and clinic owners come to me going, oh, I know something's going on, but I can't quite work it out. These are the themes that I find are going on in the businesses. Now, you might be sitting there relating to some of these themes going, oh, I think that might be going on in my business, right? It's really it's quite, what's the word for it? It's easy to work out why your business is not making money. It always falls in the next 3 areas that I'm going to talk about. So what do we do? You might have related to some of these trends that I've just mentioned. You might have team members standing around because they've got appointment gaps in books. You might have a feast or famine going on in your appointment books. One week you're fully booked, the next week you're not. You might have little gaps here and there that just really result in you not being able to, make sure that you're producing revenue for every hour of resource that you've got available. You might have consultations in place that are just not producing client commitment investment around retailing upgrades and rebooking. You may not have a really good up-to-date grasp on your business finances as far as profitability of services, overheads and expenses. You might have an understanding that you need to produce this amount to, obviously make money. And then the reality is when all the money drains from your bank account at the end of the month, maybe that's not the amount that you need to be making and you need to be making a lot more. But you just haven't figured out that yet because you don't have the metrics in place to support your decision-making around that. So the first area that I want to have a look at is pricing. So look, it's when you are providing a service to a client, and, in the hair, skin and beauty industry, we provide lots of different services. The reality is if your service is not meeting baseline profitability levels, then you're going to be running a business that is providing a whole lot of services that are not necessarily profitable and making you money. Now, this is how this typically unfolds. Often when I ask salon and clinic owners, could a reason be, or talk to me about how you've priced your service menu, how have you come up with the prices? So I generally get 2 responses. One response is, well, I've just looked around, I've looked down the road at Sally's salon and I've looked down the road at Mary's and I've seen what they've priced their services for and I've just put myself basically in the middle of that, or a little bit. I don't want to be the most expensive, but I don't want to be the cheapest, so I kind of plot myself up here. So the approach to pricing is estimation based on the market. It doesn't take into any consideration your expenses and your operating costs. And that is a big, big, big mistake. Big mistake, right? Because basically you're plucking a number that other businesses have got in place that is not based whatsoever on what it costs for you to provide that service. So you've plucked a figure out that you feels good or feels like you're not going to be too expensive or you're not going to be too cheap, but the reality is it's not a direct reflection of your expenses. So that's the first error that I see when it comes to a profitable pricing menu. I can't tell you how much a profitable pricing menu contributes to your bottom line. It's one of the biggest reasons why I see money in, money out happening in businesses. Their service menu is just not profitable when we unpack it all. So the second kind of strategy that salon and clinic owners use to price up their menu is they go to their suppliers and they just accept a recommended retail list of services. So if you're a skin clinic that stocks, a range and the professional services, could be ultraceuticals, could be Aspect, whatever it is, the supplier will often give you a list of recommended price points for those services. But what I can say to you, which is a little bit scary, is sometimes those recommended price points are also not profitable. Sorry, suppliers, they might be somewhat profitable, but they're not profitable to the level that's going to create cash flow positive in your business, because you don't have the same expenses as the other ultraceutical salon down the road. Right? You might not pay the same amount for your fibrella as the Aspect clinic down the road. So how can, the suppliers diligently provide you with an accurate price point that's going to make you money? It's not a one size fits all in terms of pricing. It should never, ever be that way. But we obviously, and I did this when I opened my skin clinic, I ran the recommended price points. Did I make money? No. Right? Because it can be scary to go against the recommended retail price points of your suppliers, because you don't want to be the business that's more expensive than everybody else, because you don't want to be, you don't want to stand out as someone that's charging more for your services when everybody else is charging XYZ. That's a mindset blockage. I know there's clinics out there that are charging well above market rate for their professional services, and they don't have a problem. And they're not sorry. And they're unapologetic in what they command for their services, because they do a good job and they've got a great client experience, and their experience backs up and can command that price point. And that's important. All right. So the pricing of your service menu has to be based on your expenses, what it cost you to provide the service. Right. And being able to calculate all of that and have a really good understanding, and then be able to price the service according to your expectations around profitability is really, really important. Okay. And I would say to you, that's probably one of the most important skills that you need to have as a salon or clinic owner providing services. Okay. So stop running your prices based on the clinics and the salons down the road. And also don't just take the recommended retails at face value from your suppliers. Do the work, do the calculations, work it out. And if it doesn't seem to be coming up trumps for you in terms of profit, then obviously you need to make sure that you've got a price point that does, or there's a number of different other strategies that you can employ to make sure that's priced profitably. You might look at your cost of goods. You might look at the time that it takes you to provide those services to get it into a profitable range. I show salon and clinic owners how to do that all the time. So pricing, very important. And one of the key areas that you need to have right to make money. The second area purely relates to performance. So when I talk about performance, I talk about the ability of your team members and even yourself to produce cash flow positive interactions from the sales that they're making. As I mentioned before, if your performance extent is that you just provide a baseline service, then your business is not going to make money. Providing a comprehensive service that includes retail, upgrades, and rebooking is what you need to be profitable. Now, I think the biggest bottleneck for the hair, beauty, and skin industry is that we're told that if we have a really good technical consult, you should be able to do all of those things. You should be able to retail if you educate people. What I mean by technical consult is just primarily education. You educate people in your consult and you do that really well, they'll buy all of the products. If you make sure that your client really understands the scientific aspects of their concerns and what ingredients in the products are going to work for them, not only will they buy all of the products, but they'll commit to the treatment plan as well, because they'll really want it fixed. It's rubbish. I'm not saying abandon education, but what I'm saying is education and technical consultation, skin analysis, technical analysis of hair concerns, and just mapping out kind of pathways just based on technical analysis alone does not sell. It just doesn't. Humans are way more complicated than that. So if you have a team that is unfortunately struggling to get the comprehensive service in play, to get the retailing, to get the rebooking, to get the upgrades happening, I would say that it would be due to a few reasons. One is that you have purely a technical consult. Two is that you don't have a consult at all, right? That you're just kind of asking a couple of questions, getting some information from someone around what service kind of is going to suit them today and just going ahead with it. That's not a consult to me, right? Or you have got a structure to your consult. It could be fully technical, but you assume it's happening, but you don't check. So you actually don't know what's going on in the treatment rooms or in the chairs, because the last time you checked what was going on for consult was years ago. You're just assuming that they're doing it because you trained them. So here's what it needs to look like. You do need to educate, but minimally. You need primarily a consultation that is high converting, is one that works on the client's motivation and commitment, right? So when we talk about a motivational style of consultation process, we actually ask questions that start to evoke emotion from our clients. We actually start to unpack pains. We start to look at desires. We tap into their commitment levels. We get an understanding of their level of commitment as far as budget, investment of time. Like, we actually take the time to get to know the person in front of us, what capacity that they've got to commit to the treatment plan, the home care prescriptions, the service that you're providing today, really getting a detailed understanding of what is challenging them, you know, what they're finding difficult, what it is that bothers them, you know, and then creating a pathway and a prescription that really speaks to those pain points and those desires that they have. I find that education skips that emotional element. You know, education's very factual, it can be overdone, but unfortunately it can be quite confusing for the client because it gets too technical. You give them too much information and they just kind of glaze over, and they don't know what they're supposed to be taking because you've bombarded them with all of this really technical information that they don't really understand. You know, so a motivational style of consultation doesn't do any of that. You know, it prioritizes the relationship, the rapport building. It prioritizes the you learning about the client versus the client listening to you in all of your technical expertise. It gets you to tap in the pains and the desires by asking really succinct questions about what they want, asking questions about what their capacity is to invest in XYZ, whether it be financial or whether it be from a timeframe perspective. Technical, clinical, education-based consult doesn't do any of that. To get a really high converting consult that has a client taking retail, committing to future services, saying yes to the upgrades, needs to have a well-balanced marriage between motivation and technical assessment. Without that, you're in trouble. You will have clients leaving that will say they'll get it next time, or I don't have my roster, or, you know, I'll think about, you know, have you got the list of the products? And they go out and buy them all online, right? Because you haven't done the motivational component of the consultation that you need to increase that level of commitment and motivation of the clients to make the investments. So that's the ideal consult. But then for those that think they might have a consult structure in place, but you haven't even checked, having a consult structure that is really clear, that is regularly checked in on, like you actually bother to check whether your team members are doing this, that you're making time to meet and have conversations regularly with your team members about the quality of their consultations and any bottlenecks or challenges that they might be having, you know, increasing levels of commitment and motivation within their clients. You need all of that for a consultation to work. right? If you've just got into the habit of, at onboarding stage, you train your team members around consult and then you let them run with it, and 6 months later, you just hope that they're still doing that, that's risky. The likelihood that they're still doing what you've trained them is actually very low, even after a couple of months of training. I see it all the time. We get our clinic owners to often mystery shop and do client surveys and get some data back on whether the consultation process is being followed. And these are clinic and salon owners that are doing the one-to-ones and that are, implementing the motivational structure and that are having the conversations about, consultations and objections and managing low motivation levels and commitment in clients. They still can do a mystery shop and find that every now and again a team member has deviated from the process. And these are really well-trained business owners that know what to look for. They still get those problems. So imagine if you haven't done any of this, what condition your consult might be in. Imagine the opportunity that you've got right now. If you've just been doing technical consults and you've been doing okay with that, imagine the numbers and the money that you could be making if you integrated motivational style interviewing into your clinical consult. I see businesses explode all of the time with that layer added to their consultation process. So that's performance. The next area that I really feel needs to be focused on when you're trying to build cash flow positive business is gaps. Gaps in appointment books. Now, obviously, there's a number of different things that contributes to gaps in appointment books. Over-resourcing, so having team members that you just can't seem to fill, despite marketing efforts and doing what you can to get the books filled, you just can't seem to do it. Inconsistent rebooking. So you might have a team member full, as you go along, but over time, their books start to erode away because their rebooking is quite low and clients are just coming in whenever they like. You might have an online booking culture that creates massive inconsistency in your appointment flows. 1 week you're full, the next week you're not. A lot of the clients are booking online. That's not an accident, because clients basically booking online are coming in whenever they like. And it's probably costing you 2 to 3 visits a year because they miss appointments because they stretch, right? So online booking can be a real threat to gaps in appointment books and inconsistency in appointment books, inconsistent rebooking, like I mentioned. Also not marketing. If you're not consistently marketing, and not just for new clients, to your existing clients, re-engaging your database, following up with clients that haven't been in for a while. There's a number of different ways that you can be consistent in your marketing. If you're not doing all of those touch points, then the reality is that you might be vulnerable to gaps in your appointment books because your marketing is either inconsistent or not evident across all of the touch points, being new client, existing client, and disengaged client avenues. So you need to make sure that you've got strategies for all of those. So gaps in books primarily is fixed by, taking control of the rebooking process. Don't let your clients rely on online booking to book their appointments because you've lost control of the rebooking process when you do that, and it will be costing you a number of appointments each year. So as much as you can, really trying to prevent that, or doing the best that you can. If you've got a really strong online booking culture established, I would start working against that. I would really start, I've suggested some dramatic measures to some clients, like turning off the function for existing clients. Maybe you leave it open for new clients, but don't let your existing clients book through online booking. Take control of the rebooking process. The best way to do this is through service and treatment plans. People are coming to you for results that aren't generally achieved in one session. Now, even beauty clients, they might achieve perfect brows in one session, but they ain't going to be perfect brows 3 weeks later. There's a maintenance element to that. They need to rebook. Hair removal clients are the same. Skin clients, they're definitely not getting a result in one visit. Hair clients can be the same. They're not getting a result in one visit depending on what they're asking for. And their hair definitely doesn't look the same as it did, on their visit 4 or 5 weeks later. there's a maintenance element to hair clients as well. So treatment and service planning is the most important element of securing your future-based booking commitment. You know, not just making a plan, actually getting them booked. I had a conversation yesterday with a client who was, you know, has low rebooking. She's a bit frustrated because she's like, well, we do all the plans. We do the plans. Every single client has a treatment or a service plan on file. So then when I looked into it, I said, okay, so they've got a plan. She said, and they're rebooked for their next appointment. And I said, what do you mean they're rebooked for their next appointment? She said, well, you know, we're rebooking them, but they're cancelling. I said, but what about the plan? She said, well, we just book each appointment as we go. I said, no. What you want to do is if you've mapped out a plan, book all of the treatments in, book all the services in. Book them out for the next 6 to 12 months. Don't just book the next appointment. People, if they're just engaged in just the next step, they lose motivation. You know, so part of the motivational commitment of clients when it comes to future-based bookings is getting them invested in a process, knowing that this is actually a journey, not a next step, just rebook and come in for your next appointment. I want to be part of a process. I want to know that, you know, over the next 12 months, on my hair visits, there'll be some hair visits where I'm not getting a full head of foils because I don't need it. There'll be some visits where I do. You know, there'll be some visits where I might want a treatment and some visits where I don't. Tell me what's going to happen. I want to know. Clients want certainty, right? Not giving them a plan and mapping that out for them is just leading to low level or flaky commitment because they're not committed to any journey going forward. Right. So treatment and service planning, plus not just the plan, but actually getting them booked in is really, really important to counter any challenges that you have with white space and gaps in appointment books. Another part of, you know, making sure that you don't have any gaps, which obviously rebooking plays a big part of that, or service planning, getting commitment to journeys and plans as opposed to just one appointment. You know, obviously being consistent with your marketing, not just getting new clients in, but, you know, getting more visits out of the clients that you've got, re-engaging clients that you might have lost, really having marketing efforts in all of those domains. But also administrationally making sure your appointment diaries are fully optimized. So this might be a little thing, but I've asked the salon and clinic owners that I work with to go away and do a calculation on this. And the feedback that I've had on this is freaking mind-boggling. So when you book appointments, sometimes there's little 10 or 15 minutes, or Sally can't come into one. So unfortunately, it's left a 45-minute awkward gap there. And all of that adds up. It all adds up, even the little ones. I've had my salon and clinic owners go back and add up all of those gaps. And then based on their average dollar sale, calculate how much that is costing them. And I've had salon and clinic owners come back to me and say, this is actually costing me 10K a month. The fact that I'm not bumping appointments together and then I've got little 10, 15-minute gaps all over the place and an awkward 45-minute that I can't book anything into, 5, 10, 15K worth of revenue lost just through not optimizing the flow of your appointment books. And that can be a front of house job. You can incentivize that. You know, white space might minimization for front of house team. Appointments should be flowing back to back. They shouldn't have these kind of gaps all over the shop. You know, being assertive in what you have available, you know, not allowing the client to fully dictate when they want to come in. You know, sometimes, you know, if I was on my front of house at my skin clinic, someone would call up and go, look, I need an appointment. Can I have 1 o'clock? And I'd look at 1 o'clock and it would technically be free because if I booked her in at 1 o'clock, she could have her service, but it meant that there was a 25-minute gap before the next client came in. So I would say to her, no, I don't have 1 o'clock, but I can give you 1:30. Does that still suit? Yeah, cool. Like it's only half an hour, but that allowed me to bump up that appointment right to the threshold of the next appointment, which gave me another full appointment spot available. You know, so being assertive around what's available and making sure that you're prioritizing the appointment book optimization to avoid small gaps in between services actually makes a big difference to your bottom line. It really does. And if you don't think it does, go and add up all of those small little gaps and then calculate how much money that's actually costing you. You'll be very, very surprised. Pricing, performance, and gaps. It's not rocket science, right? When I have salon and clinic owners come to me with cash flow deficits, these are the areas that we target immediately. And it is through strategizing each one of these different areas and putting some tactics in place and cleaning this up a little bit that kind of releases the cash flow that could have been done 12, 18, 3 years ago straight away. You know, you can start making money now. Business, you're not running business to make a wage. You're just not. Running a business means that you can pay yourself healthily and have 20, 30, 40% extra on top of that to invest however you like. You know, so I just think that if you've got into the habit of just thinking that your business is a break even scenario, money in, money out, as long as I got my $500 a week, you're thinking too small. And the reality is you've taken too many risks and you've made too much effort and you've put too much time into this business to accept that that's just the reality, that just at the end of the month you pay your bills and there's nothing else left over. At the end of the month, as long as you've got a wage and all of your expenses are paid and you can pay the tax office, you're happy. That's rubbish. Because I know, I'm living, breathing proof that you can have a lot more money at your disposal if you nail these 3 areas: pricing, performance, and gaps. But that's where the money's actually hiding in your business. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Really love to hear from you guys in the comments section. Hit me up. Love it, hate it, where are you at? I'd love to hear from you.